We've been tracking the life of Jacob, and as we've been going through Genesis, one of the things that we've been seeing about Jacob is it's not just a story of an individual, of a man, but it's gives you a very visual of how this man's walk is developing. And interesting, if you look back at his dad's walk developed in a totally different way. And then you go back to his grandfather Abraham, and his walk also was totally different. And that's exactly what you're supposed to be getting out of all of this, okay? In the sense that each one of our walks are different. Each one of us are called in a different way. Abraham, when God spoke to Abraham right from the get-go, Abraham acknowledged it. He didn't obey. And over time, he learned as he went along. He learned about the faithfulness of God, and he learned to trust in the promises of God. And to me, it kind of says, okay, so what was the deal with Abraham? If you stand back and you look at that whole picture, I'd say Abraham had trust issues. In the sense that when God spoke to him right in the beginning, and he said to him, Abraham, leave your family, leave your land. It was a huge jump, it was a huge step, but Abraham didn't listen to that at all. God orchestrates things and compels Abraham's father to pack up and move. And that kind of gets Abraham prompted in the right direction and starts this whole walk with God. And then you look at, like now we're looking at Jacob. Jacob's got a couple of issues going. One of them is his deceitful nature. His name literally means tricky or scheming, conniving. And that's part of his nature, it's part of who he is. It's not just his name. That word name that we refer to and we think of in our English language is, in the Bible, it's more your nature. What is your nature? And oftentimes their nature was indicative of their character, of who they actually were. If you look at Jesus' interaction with Peter, he starts off with Peter, and you remember the one time it says there that he said to Peter, Satan would seek to sift you as sand. Okay? Well, Peter, if you take that back to the Greek at that time, is talking about a little stone. Then Jesus turns around and he calls him Simon, changes it up. Go back and look at that. Because Peter comes from Petros, and then you go back and look at Simon, that's now talking about a rock. And then the play on words is, Jesus says, oh, Satan's seeking to sift you like sand. Your name is this, but I'm making you this. He changes out his name. And it's interesting, in each one of the characters that we look at, they've got a unique walk. They're dealing with a unique problem. And here with Jacob, we see, first and foremost, he's got this trickiness, this treachery in him. And when he plays this trickiness and he gets caught, he runs, he books it. That's his nature. So let's just, I want to just kind of track with you quickly and show you this growth or this walk that we're seeing with Abraham. So go to Genesis chapter 25. In chapter 25, round about verse 29, we see Jacob striving for something. And that something here was the birthright. And we've spoken about this birthright extensively. It contains two things. One, it's a double inheritance, because the birthright was given to the oldest son. He wasn't the oldest son, okay? And then it also means that you're going to be the spiritual leader of the family, okay? So Jacob at this point has got some sort of understanding about spiritual matters, okay? That's in 25. Then if you turn the page and we go to chapter 27, verse 12, you remember him and his mom, they were plotting a plan here by which he could now deceive his father and get not the birthright, but the blessing, the patriarchal blessing, okay? And the mom hatches this plan, and he turns around and he says, well, if I go in Verse 12 says, perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be a deceiver. He is a deceiver, and he knows it full well. But what is he doing here? He's playing mom as well. He's going to steal from his brother. He's going to con his father, and now he's playing mom to take the blame. I mean, this is the epitome of craftiness. He's not even going to take the blame for his actions, okay? But notice that verse there is critically important in this story, and it's very, very important in our walks. You'll see 2 weeks' time it'll come up, I think. Depends how fast we move. But it says there, I shall seem as a deceiver. He hasn't acknowledged who he is. So too with you and me in our walks. You can get some sort of a head knowledge of God, which is what Jacob had. He started learning about spiritual things. At that point, you might have a head knowledge knowing, okay, there's God the Father, there's God the Son, there's God the Holy Spirit, there's a heaven, there's a hell. And more than that, you don't really know too much about. You might desire it, but you can take it or leave it. But the big thing that will categorize you is you don't have a grasp of who you are yet, okay? It's like I told you before, on the beach, a person that is drowning, when they first start drowning, they don't understand that they're actually drowning and they need help. And you get up to them, and they've got a little bit of energy. Do you need help? Can I help you? No, I'm good, I'm fine. And then years later, I realized, I let them go underneath a couple of times, because that way when I went out to them, I didn't have to say anything. I just used to toss them the rescue can, and they'd be grabbing on that thing. They realized they were drowning. Same too with you and me in our lives. When you realize you're drowning, that's when you really cotton on to spiritual things. And you're like, whoa, hold on a second, I need a savior. And then, if we go over to chapter 28, when Jacob does deceive his father, and he now gets this blessing. I was listening to the rabbi teach about this patriarchal blessing. It's far more than just dad spouting off a blessing. The Hebrew teachings on this patriarchal blessing is that it was actually what do they call it? I've gone blank. When God speaks to you, it was a prophetic word. So when the patriarchal blessing was about to be given, Dad would literally almost go like we would say in a set of prayer or whatever it is, and he would hear from God and pronounce that blessing. Now, back then, very different to today. Dad wasn't just the head of the household, he was the priest of the home. New Testament says to us, guys, we are supposed to be the priest of the home. We are supposed to be hearing from God. But we're so caught up in our lives and ourselves and everything now that we don't do that anymore as males. And here, this patriarchal blessing, this prophetic word that is coming, when Jacob goes in and pretends to be Isaac, and pretends to be Esau, Isaac is going to give this blessing. He blesses him, but in the blessing that is given in chapter 27, 39 through 40, there's nothing in there about being the spiritual head of the home. So the Jewish scholars, what they say and how they prove this whole thing, that this is a prophetic blessing, is that when Isaac's wife was told by the Lord that the younger would rule over the older, custom was, if you'd heard from the Lord, you wouldn't go and tell a prophet what you'd heard, because the prophet would hear himself from God, and that would simply confirm what you've heard. Abraham, in this blessing here, does not give who he believes to be Esau the right to be the spiritual head of the home. And later on, when he goes and blesses him the second time when he's leaving, in chapter 28, that's when he gets into all the spiritual stuff. And he starts giving him the blessings that Abraham received from God, and that headship is now passed down. So now, you might think, and you might say, okay, so Jacob now, he's got the birthright, and he's hungered, and he's gone and conned and connived and got this blessing. He must be a Christian. No. And I'm using the word Christian. I know he's Jewish and he wasn't a Christian, but a believer, okay, let's say a believer, okay? No, he wasn't. He's still running on head knowledge and titles. much the same as when you get spoken to about Christianity, but it's just like yeah, okay, I'm listening. And you can do you can do. You can wear the Christian T-shirts. You can put the bumper sticker on the back of your car. It doesn't make you a Christian until such time as that head knowledge strikes your heart. Many people are going to miss heaven by 18 inches distance from here to here. So at this point, we see Jacob. He does his conniving, and immediately he starts running, right? Because his brother's going to kill him. And he gets out to a place called Luz. And as I said previously, this Luz means separated. It's a picture of, it's a type of, typology with his position with God. He knows about God, but he's still separated from God, okay? He has that dream. When he wakes up, he says something here. He says, in chapter 28, verse 16, he says, then Jacob awoke from his sleep and he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. Now he realizes, hold on, God's been here all the time, and now my eyes are starting to open. You don't come to God unless God opens up your eyes and gives you the ears to hear it. And immediately, this is now what I refer to as, say, goosebump theology or goosebump salvation. He has this experience. He wakes up with the goosebumps. The very next sentence, he says, how awesome is this place? And that's oftentimes with us as new Christians, we get this goosebump experience. And all of a sudden, now it's time for the T-shirt and the bumper sticker and the cross and everything else.
Yeah, dreadful.
What's that?
Yeah, dreadful. How dreadful is this place?
Okay, awesomeness and dreadful, it ties in together. It's fear the Lord. It's not be scared of him, but you realize his awesomeness. That's what that term fear means. And so Jacob there, he comes to a complete understanding of who God is. He's got this, but he hasn't got this. Different, okay? So now he's on this goosebump road, as it were. And if you jump down to the beginning part of chapter 29, my Bible reads, so Jacob went on his journey. Anybody got a King James Version? What does yours say there?
It's the same thing, sir.
Okay, in the original, it says there, and Jacob lifted up his feet. When you go back into the Hebrew, you check that out. It says that Jacob had happy feet. Now all of a sudden, you've got this new Christian. What does a new Christian do?
Yeah.
Oh man, he's dancing. He's the one in the front of the eye, right in the front of the church, making a complete idiot of himself. Yeah, and all the rest of it. And every week the cross gets bigger. The words on the T-shirts get bigger and everything. And it's always like he's trying to make something work. Okay? It's like Moses. Remember when Moses went up the mountain? When he came down, everybody was like, whoa, dude, you're glowing. What's going on? Oh, I've been with God. Then the glow starts to go. So what did Moses do? He covered his face. And in the Old Testament, it's because he didn't want the people to be put off. In the New Testament, it tells us what it is. It's because the glow was diminishing, and he didn't want the people to see. Every time he went up the mountain to God and spoke with God, he was re-energized, revitalized. He was all lit up. But as he spent time down off the mountain with the people, that glow diminished. And that's why he covered his face. That's what the New Testament tells us. Same with this whole goosebump theology or Christianity, is you have to kind of make it work. So you're putting on the dance, you're putting on this, you're putting on that. But interesting here, three things that have started happening to Jacob in his walk. And if you back up to chapter 28, verse 18, you'll see that when he has this dream and he wakes up, the first thing he does is he takes that rock and he sets it up as a pillar. And the Bible says he poured oil on it. That is what you would do if you were going to worship at an altar. So he builds an altar and he worships the Lord. Okay. First thing that's indicative of a proper conversion. Okay. He starts worshiping. Then the next thing that you'll see is verse 22 of chapter 28. He then says to God right at the end of verse 22, and of all that you give me, talking to God, of all that you, God, give me, I will surely give a tenth to you. Now, just out of the blue, this is Jacob, the guy that's after money and scheming and conniving. Now all of a sudden, he's like, you know what? Okay, I get it, and now I'll give back to you. What is the thing that stands between you and God? What is your little demigod? That's what when you'll notice a change in a person's life when they start saying, okay, you know what? Sunday morning, there's a TV program on that I just love that, whatever the program is, and I can't go to church. Now all of a sudden on a Sunday morning, you say, well, you know what? I'll just record that and I'll go to church anyway. There's a change. You're now starting to giving back to the Lord. Then the third thing, as I said, is his happy feet. It's an attitude. There's a change in his walk, okay? And he's skipping and dancing. So then, with this lot, then jump over to chapter 30. Now he goes down and he's heading down to Iran, and he's got. Remember, he was sent there by mom to go and get a wife, to go and live with Uncle Laban and find a wife down there so he sort of can kill her. So at this point, when he gets down there, basically he runs into a miracle. Because first miracle, he gets all the way to Haran without a GPS and cell phone and everything. Second miracle, when he gets there, as he gets there, here comes beautiful Rachel. Remember, he's been sent down there to go and get a wife, and the hottest girl in the county kind of thing just happens to come walking along. It just happens to be Uncle Laban's daughter that gives him an in. And he just happens to be looking for a wife. At that point, he's saying, oh man, the Christianity thing is wonderful. Thank you, Lord. Okay? So too with us when we first become Christians. But with all of this, and this is the big but when it comes to Christianity, nobody tells you this. Everybody that will talk to you about Christianity and that, they'll say, oh man, life with the Lord is just so wonderful, and he'll look after you, and he'll never forsake you. And we throw all the verses in, but we forget to mention that there's still life. And life is not a bed of roses at all. In fact, the Bible warns you and says to you and tells you life is difficult. But it's funny how your perspective changes when you have God in your life as opposed to do not have God in your life. It's a lot harder without. I know I've been there on both sides of that fence. So him being this new believer, as it were, things should be good. But the first thing that happens to him after he gets the miracle, he gets conquered. Okay? God puts into this guy's walk another him. He meets Laban. Laban is a con man as well. So here's Jacob, a con man, going to now live with a con man, and boy, Jacob's going to get conned time and time again. It's funny, in order for God to get rid of idolatry from the Jewish people, from the Israelites, he sent them into Babylon. Babylon was the center point on the face of this earth for idolatry. When the Jews came out of Babylon, they never ever got back into idol worship again. They were sick and tired of it. And this is what happens with Jacob right here. And that's what God will do for you, for me. So that's kind of his next milestone in his Christian walk. Then he had kind of a weird experience in the sense that in verse 37 talks about Jacob taking these rods and peeling off the pieces and his flocks, going from solid colors to patchwork colors. And we'll find out that it's actually God that told him to do these things. And it's almost like in our walk where you feel God pressing something upon you, and you're like, well, it doesn't really make much sense, but there's obedience in the Christian walk. So in obedience, you go ahead and do it. Trust me, I've done a lot. Well, before I knew God, I did a lot of things that didn't make sense. And either I got hurt or somebody else got hurt. But after I knew God, there was still a lot of things that I felt God laying upon my heart that didn't really make sense. And then you see God's blessing further down the road, and you're like, oh, that's why I had to do that then, even if it's years and years later. So that's where this guy is. And now, in chapter 31, this contest between Laban and Jacob has been going backwards and forwards. Now, Jacob, he's got the two wives, he's got the two maidservants, he's got a bunch of kids, his flocks have grown, okay? And now we see the next part of Jacob's walk. Chapter 31, verse 1, it says, now Jacob heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and from what was our father's, he has acquired with all his wealth. And Jacob saw the countenance of Laban, and indeed it was not favorable towards him as before. That is exactly how God works. Revelation chapter 3, it talks about, chapter 3 verse 8, it talks about God will open a door that no man can close, and he'll close a door that no man can open. And then if we read the next verse, I'm going to come back to that statement, verse 3, it says, then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your family, and I will be with you. So right here, God's giving Jacob a command which makes absolutely no sense. Go back to your family. Esau, who's about to kill him. Okay? Dad, who is conned, and I think we won't say too much about mom, but it's not a good place to go back to. Okay? So now it's calling for obedience, taking him out of his comfort zone. Opening and closing the doors. If God had said this to Jacob a little while earlier, Jacob would have turned around and said, really, Lord? I've got 2 wives, I've got concubines, I've got a bunch of kids, things are going good here. Look at all my flocks, they're growing, why should I leave? But God begins to close the doors. He's opened doors, he's telling him where to go, now he's closing doors. And how he closes the doors is, Jacob heard the words of Laban's sons, so now there's a little bit of backbiting. Things are starting to sour around him. And then he sees the countenance. Now all of a sudden he's not this person who's looked upon favorably. It's not always a pleasure to see you. It's like, oh man, it's you again. Things start to sour. Okay? I've heard it said it's the sweet and sour principle. The sweet side is there's doors opening, and after a while you're looking through those open doors and you're like, man, definitely looks good at that side, because this side is starting to get sour. That's sweet and sour principle, that's how God moves you on. So right now, at this point, God starts to gently move Jacob in the direction that he wants him to go. So verse 4 says, Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field, to his flock, and he said to them, once again, Jacob's nature is coming into play here. He takes them out to the field. He doesn't do it openly at home in front of everybody, in front of Laban and Laban's son. And he says to his wife now, I see your father's countenance, that is not favorable towards me as before. But the God of my father has been with me. Yes, the God of my father. What happened to my God? It's not there. So now, even when he had that dream and he woke up and he said, wow, God is in this place. His walk is such that he's now associating a place as to where God is. It's like, oh, I need to go to church again so I can meet with God. Well, hold on a second. Is God in the church? No. When God's talking to Solomon and King David, he's saying to King David, when David's saying, hey, can I build a temple for you? God's saying, nah. You think a temple's going to keep me inside that little building? God is not in it. But this is the mindset of a new believer. Hey, I'll meet with God. I've got to go to that set place. And so Jacob here, verse 6, and then he says, and you know that with all my might I've served your father. Well, in a sense, yes, he has. But at the same time, he's been doing this little trickery deal and growing the flocks for himself. Verse 7, yet your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. And we know the one time with when the switch for the brides, we know it twice. The brides, and then also when they made the deal with the flocks. As soon as they made the deal, Laban went out behind his back, took all the spotted cattle and moved them off sites, right? So that was twice. But obviously there's a couple more things that Laban did that the Bible didn't go into detail on. So then he also said, but God did not allow him to hurt me. Well, at this point, Laban wasn't out to hurt Jacob, because in fact, Laban had come to Jacob early on and said to him, hey, I've been blessed because of your God and your presence here. Verse 8, if he said thus, so if Laban said this to me, the speckled shall be your wages, then all the flocks before speckled. And if he said thus, the street shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore street. So God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. Now he is opening up here a little bit and letting them know, hey, this whole plot with regards to the speckled and the street and the solid And if you're not following this, because you went, yeah, Charles got it on tape so you can go online and hear it. Interesting story. Verse 10. And it happened at the time when the flocks conceived that I lifted up my eyes and I saw in a dream. So now he's telling and letting us know why he did this. He saw it in a dream, God speaking to him. And behold, the rams which leaped upon the flocks were streaked and speckled and gray spotted. Then the angel of God spoke to me in a dream, saying, Jacob, and I said, here I am. That's one thing that I will say for Jacob in his favor with regards to his walk. When God speaks, the guy listens, and he hears very quickly. So often, you will ask God for something, and because the answer isn't as to what you expected, what you wanted, what you thought it might be, you kind of, sorry Lord, I didn't hear it, you want to say it again? And I hope it'll be something different. So kind of like the little ones nagging, they'll nag and nag and nag and nag and nag. We say, yeah, okay, just go do it. That's us as well. Careful with that with God. There's a king, Hezekiah. And the Bible records him as he was a brilliant king. And then at the end, when God had the prophet come to him, and the prophet said to him, hey, your number's up, get ready. Instead of him saying, you know what, I've had this brilliant life, done really well. Now I know I've been forewarned, and he can wrap up his affairs and retire with grace. Says that he went to lay down on his bed, and he turned his face to the wall, and he threw a fit. And God stopped the prophet and said to the prophet, hey, go back to him and said to him, okay, fine, you can have a couple more years. I'll give you 15 more years. This is one of the best kings that we've had and this, up until this point. And in that 15 years, he sires 2 more sons. His son that took over from him goes down as the worst king that there was. His whole reputation goes down the toilet in that next 15 years that he was given. So be careful what you ask for, especially if you've been given an answer and then don't want to do it. Interesting, in the Old Testament, sometimes when you went to the priest and you went for advice, and the priest told you what to do, if you didn't accept and heed that advice, you died. Let that be a warning to you if you come for counsel. And I said, here I am, verse 12, and he said, lift your eyes now and see all the rams which leap on the flocks and streaked, speckled, and gray spotted. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. So now, you've got to kind of throw your mind backwards. Do you remember that whole story with the those little love apples that they found? Okay? And in that culture, the little apple itself was supposed to be an aphrodisiac. The fruit of that plant was supposed to be a fertility drug. And Rachel is the one that took it, but Leah is the one that fell pregnant. Now, it's the same sort of scenario, but you're putting a plant and now the genetics are going to alter. Is it that stick that's changing it? Or is it God that's changing it? So often you and I need something to hang on to as proof of what God is doing in our lives, or that He's still there. You're looking for something tangible. And for a while, as with this new Christian or new believer, let me change that, God will give you these things to hang on to, like this spotted stick and all the rest of it. And He'll give you the miracles and the signs that you see, but at some point, they're going to stop. And the reason they're going to stop is for maturity. Because at some point, you've got to walk by faith and not by sight. Okay? At some point, you've got to take a trip to the desert. The desert is a dry place. But if you go and check out Scripture, go and look at the mighty, mighty, mighty men that God employed, all of them spent time out in the desert. Go back to David. Where was David when God called him to slay Goliath? He was at the backside of the desert. That region is dry. It's a desert area. So when it says green pastures, we kind of think, oh, beautiful green grass and palm trees, little Hawaiian music. No, that's not it. It's arid, but there's sufficient moisture out there to produce just a little bit of grass, and that's what those flocks can feed on.
Is that where taking your field trip to Arizona?
Yeah, either that or we can go back to Kalahari in South Africa. I'll show you what a real desert looks like. But, so David, in the desert, Paul spent the first, I stand under correction here, but I think it's the first 30 years going through Jewish culture and all the learning and everything. Then he came to know Christ, and then what happened to him? God stuck him out in the desert for 3 years, and it says that he was taught and ministered to by Jesus. Go through every single one of these major men, you'll find they were out in the desert. So too with you and me in our walk. You're going to go through the first little bit, and then all of a sudden it's going to dry out. At that point, you come to a crossroads in your walk. What are you going to do? Bigger t-shirts, bigger crosses. And I've seen that around town here. A couple of individuals that model that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with big crosses and big t-shirts and big bumper stickers. But when you're trying to manufacture what is not there, this false spirituality, and you're trying to look super religious, isn't it the very thing that Jesus came out and said, hey, you're being a hypocrite? You know what, if you're battling and you're walking, it's dry, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Because it's a time period that you're going through so that you can actually learn faith. The Bible says the just shall live by faith. Not you might, not you can, it says you're going to. It's not predicated upon what you're going to do. God's going to do it to you, whether you like it or not. You are going to walk by faith, one way or another. So here, this guy here, he was given all those signs and things, and yes, he prospered. Now he's trying to convince the lady. He's trying to convince his wife, hey, we need to get out of here. He's not doing it in an open way. He's going back to his old ways. But I thought he was saved. But he's still going back to his old ways. How many of us, remember I said a couple of Sundays ago, don't go to Uvalde and bring the goat back? How many of us in that time period have gone and done exactly the same thing over again? Verse 14, then Rachel and Leah answered him and said, is there still any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not considered strangers to him? For he has sold us. Remember, he sold them for 7 years of work. For he sold us and also completely consumed our money. Our inheritance is gone. They're saying to him, Dad dealt treacherously with you. He sold us. We're not going to get anything out of the deal here. Yeah, we're ready to move. Verse 16. For all these riches which God has taken from our father are already ours and our children's. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do it. There's a good verse for the wives. Verse 17. Then Jacob rose and he set his sons and his wives on the camels. Now we're back to these camels again. Remember he arrived there with the camels? If you go back earlier and you see the Holy Spirit, remember the Holy Spirit came down and got a bride for Isaac. He arrived there with the 10 camels. The 10 camels always speaks about the law. 10 commandments. Verse 18. And he carried away all his livestock and all his possessions which he had gained. And he acquired livestock which he had gained in Pandamaran to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. So he basically packed up and he hightailed it out of there. Verse 19. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the household idols that were her father's. So Laban now is telling us wasn't around when Jacob packed up everything. Okay? Kind of convenient timing. This is Jacob's nature coming through again and again. He still hasn't learned his lesson. Verse 20. Oh, and Rachel stealing his idols. These are idols, as I've kind of said before. It's a little idol. And, I mean, they've uncovered millions of these things in that part of the world. The little idol. But when they worship these idols, they're not worshiping that little idol. That idol is simply a representation of. It's a representation of a philosophy. That's what they're worshiping. So in other words, if they had one of the Ashtaroth, the goddess, okay, they were worshiping the philosophy that god represented. So if it's a god of sexuality, that's and that's what their nature. That's what they kind of are driven to or attracted to. That's what they would worship today. Little Playboy bunny around our necks. Okay, if that's what attracts you, that's where you'll go and worship. You've got mammon. Jesus talks about it, and when he equates it with money, he's talking about the God behind money. It's the philosophy chasing money, and the little idol would represent mammon, who would represent the philosophy chasing money, wealth, going after wealth. And in order to obtain wealth, there's many different things. You would sacrifice your baby, your firstborn, to Moloch, and Moloch would then promise you prosperity. If you were going to open a business, well, sorry, baby, into the fire, and your business would prosper. That was the philosophy behind it.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, Lacey, numbers up. So we think, oh man, we think, wow, that's weird. Really? What about those big dollar signs on the big gold necklaces that the guys walk around and wear? Same thing. It's simply a little representation of the philosophy. Okay? And that's what they weren't primitive people. She was really mean there. So she goes and steals Dad's little idol. Now remember something. Rachel, she was the beautiful one. This is the one that Jacob was all smitten over. And now we're starting to see little cracks in her personality as we go down the line. As you discover, the comment was, man, she's just wicked. If you read further. So she goes and steals Dad's little idol. Okay? So verse 19. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the household idols that were her father's. And Jacob stole away unknown to Laban the Syrian, in that he did not tell him that he intended to flee. Notice, not leave, not move back home, to flee. Verse 21. So he fled with all that he had. He arose and he crossed the river and headed towards the mountains of Gilead. 22. And Laban was told on the third day that Jacob had fled. Interesting the numbers in all of this, if you're interested in numerology and that. Third day comes up there. Verse 23. Then he took his brethren with him, and he pursued him for 7 days. Okay, so this is Uncle Laban now taking his sons and obviously a couple of the household servants and things, small army, and he's going after Laban. Notice, pursued him for 7 days. And he overtook him in the mountains of Gilead. But God had come to Laban, the Syrian, in a dream by night, and said to him, be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad. The original on that, or the correct translation, is from good to bad. In other words, God's saying to Laban, hey Laban, don't get a hold of Jacob now and say to him, hey bud, and now I'm going to kill you. Okay, that's what it's talking about. Don't go to him in that sense, and also pretty much don't mess with him. It's one of my, Jacob's one of my protections. So, Laban, we've just seen here, he's got these little false gods, so he's not a Christian. And when he addressed Jacob earlier, he said, your presence and your God is definitely not a believer in Yahweh, which is what Jacob was a believer in, God the Father. So, why is God speaking to him? Notice God can speak to whom he pleases, whether it's Christian, non-Christian. Just because you've had an encounter with God doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a Christian. You can have a God experience in your life, but don't rest, don't put that in the bank and kind of say, well, good, I've got that, I'm headed to heaven. Be careful. It's not a guaranteed thing. That little verse that says, work out your own salvation in fear and trembling. Okay? It wouldn't be there if you've got salvation, why have you got to work on it? And why have you got to worry about it? Why have you got to really be focused on it? There for a reason. So verse 25. So Laban overtook Jacob, so he catches up to him up in the mountains. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mountains, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mountains of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, what have you done that you've stolen away unknown to me and carried away my daughters like captives taken with the sword? assumption. This is on Laban's part right now. Verse 27, why did you flee away secretly and steal away from me and did not tell me? For I might have sent you away with joy and songs, with timbrel and the harp. Hey, if you had just told me and be open with me, man, we would have thrown a festival for you and we would have had a carnival and a grand centre. No, this is not exactly what he was going to do. He would have stopped him. He would have taken and not allowed him to take all the flocks and things. He would have given him his wives. He didn't care about the daughters. But he would have kept back the monetary things, the sheep and the herds. Verse 28. And you did not allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Parting kiss. Now you've done foolishly in so doing. It is in my power to do you harm, as the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad. Jacob, you've done wrong. I have the power to kill you, but God said I can't. Verse 30. Funny how this guy, Laban Laban, in living with Jacob, says to Jacob, okay, this is after Jacob has worked two sections of 7 years for each of the wives. Okay, so it'll be 14 years down the road. And he comes to Laban and he says, I want to take off. And Laban says, no, stay here. Give me what you want wage-wise, and you can work and get something for yourself, because I've been blessed by your God through your presence. So this man is a non-believer. He sees the blessings of God. He even experiences them. Then he's spoken to directly by God, and yet he still doesn't accept God. For me, it's like, how much more do you need? What else do you need? Verse 30, and now you have surely gone because you greatly long for your father's house, but why did you steal my gods? I'm not worried about my grandkids. I'm not worried about the flocks. I'm worried about my gods. He's worried about these little g gods when God, the Father, capital G, has just spoken to him. And yet he's worried about these little gods. You see, his God was gone, and that's his focus. Laban is all about wealth, same as Jacob. And that's why the two are put together. But regardless of how much evidence is put before Laban, he's not going to see. You see, in that dream that Jacob had, look at the difference. Jacob wakes up and he says, you know what, I'm going to give you a tenth of everything. The wealth that I have, whatever I get in the future, I'm going to give you a tenth of it. The point of tithing is not to fund God's kingdom. God created this earth. Every single diamond that lies beneath the soil, ounce of gold, belongs to God. If indeed there was a monetary shortage and God was insistent that there's money to pay for something, God will provide. There's a story of, oh man, I forget his name now, but he was a preacher, and as well as being a preacher, he had a couple of orphanages. And it was here in the States, and if I remember correctly, it dates back to the 40s, I think it is. And George Mueller. And the story is told that one night he sits down at this orphanage, and they've got nothing to eat for these kids, absolutely nothing. And he sits down, and he prays in front of the kids, thank you, Lord, for your provision. Thank you for what you've given us. And I mean, the kids, they must have been looking at him like he's absolutely nuts. Shortly thereafter, there's a knock on the door, or cell phone call, and goes, answers the door, and there's a guy right outside the orphanage, who's David the wagon, that's got a big cart, and the wheel has come off the cart, and the cart is full of produce. And the guy says to him, my cart's broken down, I've got to take it to the next town to get it repaired, but I can't put the load on it. Can you use the food? When God needs, God provides. God's not a beggar to anyone. If this is this guy's focus, that's what he's going to get. Verse 31. Then Jacob answered and he said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, perhaps you would take your daughters from me by force. With whom now? He's answering the first part of the accusation. And there's truth here. Jacob was starting to tell the truth. This is a minor miracle right here, okay? Because I was afraid. So I snuck away. Next part here, verse 32. With whomever you find your God, do not let him live. In the presence of our brethren, identify what I have taken of yours and take it with you. That is echoing King David's words. Do you remember when Nathan the prophet came to King David after King David had the relationship with Bathsheba, and then she's pregnant, so he tries to cover it up, and her husband Uriah, he sends Uriah into battle and orchestrates that Uriah is going to die in battle. And Nathan comes to David and he says to David, hey David, there's a man here in town who's got a whole bunch of flocks. I mean, he's got great wealth. But a friend of his came to visit, and he went to his neighbor who was really poor and only had one little lamb, and he took that lamb, slaughtered it, and presented that for dinner for his guest. And David gets really upset, and he says, that's it, that man is going to make restitution, and he's going to get put to death. Well, David is a king. He's supposed to uphold the law. He's not supposed to add to the law or diminish from the law. He has a sacred obligation to uphold the law and to apply it correctly. That's those kings were set there by God. David reacts like that. He overreacts. Why? Because he was guilty of exactly the same thing. David had many women. Here's this one guy, Uriah, who has but one little lamb, his wife, Bathsheba. And David takes that from Uriah. So he overreacts violently. Isn't that like you and me when somebody does us a wrong, and it's the thing that we are very susceptible to, in other words, lying or I'm a thief, and somebody steals from me. Oh, you blow it all out of proportion. Why? You're reacting to something in here. You're reacting in anger, disgust, and everything, because you recognize the fault within yourself. And now, this is exactly what he's doing. And what he's saying here is, okay, so find it. The thief is going to get put to death. Ooh, hold on a second. It's your first love. It's Rachel. They've stolen it. For Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the idols. Verse 33. This is interesting now. And Laban went into Jacob's tent. So guess who Uncle Laban trusts the least or suspects the most? Okay? Goes and checks on Jacob's tent. And then he goes into Leah's tent and into the two maids' tents, but he did not find them. What about Rachel? Then he went out of Leah's tent and he entered Rachel's tent. This is the daughter that he obviously trusted the most. And this is the daughter that had deceived Dad. And this is the daughter that, deceiving Jacob, had first chosen. Kind of scary. Verse 34. Now Rachel had taken the half of idols and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. And Laban searched all about the tent and did not find them. And she said to her father, let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise before you, for the manner of woman is with me. So she's on a monthly cycle, and she says to Dad, hey, Dad, sorry, I can't stand up. It's that time of the month. And he's like, okay, I'm not dealing with that. And he goes and looks somewhere else. Pretty deceptive, I'd say. Pretty quick thinking. And he searched, but he did not find his household idols. So he checked the whole camp. Now, verse 36, Jacob is upset. Okay, he's been proven right, probably for the first time in his life. And now he's really mad. Okay, he's going to drive a point home. Verse 36. Then Jacob was angry and he rebuked Laban. And Jacob answered and he said to Laban, what is my trespass? What is my sin that you have so hotly pursued me? Although you have searched all my things, what part of your household things have you found? So Jacob is declaring his innocence, but only on that small part. Sit here before my brethren and your brethren, that they may judge between us both. So here, this is the same system we use today. If you go to court, you're entitled to a trial with a jury of your peers. Okay? Verse 38. These 20 years I've been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried their young. He's talking about what he was employed for. And I've not eaten the rams of your flock. So while I was watching your herd, I didn't steal from you and have a barbecue on the side. Verse 39, that which was tore by beasts I did not bring to you, I bore the loss of it. This is telling you something about Jacob's nature. You see, shepherd custom back in those days, if I was looking after, say Kyle had a flock and he employed me as a shepherd to look after his flock, if a lion or a bear or something like that came in and ate a lamb or a sheep or whatever it is from that flock, I have one of two choices. I can either go back to Kyle and say, hey, lion ate that, and it was worth $20, here's the $20. I have to pay and make restitution. Or I can go out and hunt down the lion, kill it, cut its ears off, come back to Kyle and say, hey, lion ate the lamb, here's the proof that I did what I needed to do. Remember David? When David went into battle against Goliath, King Saul said, hey, here's all the armor. David said, I haven't tested these things. And, one of Saul's comments was, man, you just avoid Goliath's a big old gladiator. What chance do you stand? And David turned around and said, I've been watching my father's sheep. It's a play on words there. My father's sheep. And when the lion and the bear came in, I killed them both. That's what he used to vindicate that he has been into battle. And here, Jacob is saying here, you didn't have to bear the loss. I bore the loss. In other words, I paid for it. I didn't go and hunt down anything. Part of Jacob's personality, if you haven't caught this by now, he's a coward. Okay, this is him. He's a deceiver and he's a coward. He runs when there's problems. So, you required it from my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was in the day the drought consumed me, as much as in Texas, and the frost by night. And my sheep departed from my eyes. So in looking after yours so well, I've also lost part of my herd. And it wasn't an easy job. The hot and the cold. Verse 41. Thus I've been in your house 20 years. I served you 14 years for your two daughters. Notice he doesn't say anything about, hey, you deceived me with your daughters. Okay? I've served you 14 years. There's a change happening here. I've served you 14 years for the daughters and 6 years for your flock. And you have changed my wages 10 times. Laban doesn't deny this 10 times. But he keeps on coming back to this 10 times. 10, the law, the law, the law, the law. Jacob wants to hold Laban accountable to the law. But yet Jacob, his very nature, his name, is violating the law all the time. It's funny how if our enemy gets caught and goes to prison and he's going to stand before the judge, we're like, man, I hope that judge throws the book at him and we get caught and go before the same judge. Man, I hope that judge is lenient. I hope he's merciful. What about God being our judge? How we will say about another person. And we'll condemn that person. And yet when we do the same things, we want to go before God and say, oh, please have mercy. Verse 42. Unless the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. So he's telling him straight out, hey, you came over here to kill me. And if it was not for God, you would have taken all of the stuff that we had agreed to. Verse 43. And Laban answered and he said to Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and this flock is my flock. All that you see is mine. No. He worked 14 years for the daughters. The flock he got by God. That was God's gift to him. And he did work for it. But what can I do this day to these, my daughters, or to their children whom they have borne? Now therefore come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. So Jacob took a stone and he set it up as a pillar. These guys are making this covenant. This is not a nice, oh, we'll be friends forever covenant, okay? These guys really and truly hate each other. If Laban could have his way, he would have killed Jacob at this point. Jacob was fearing for his life. He's running away. And he said to him, hey, I'm scared, I'm running. So now they're going to come to an agreement. Then Jacob said to his brethren, gather stones. And they took stones and they made a heap. And they ate there on the heap. Laban called it, now, I don't know why, but when these guys translated the Bible, they translate everything from Greek, Hebrew, Latin, you get Spanish Bible. Why do they keep on putting the original names in? I mean, all these Jacob, just change it to the original name, and then, but Jacob called it Galid. They both mean the same thing. Heap. And now here's the pact that these two guys are going to make, verse 48. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me this day. Therefore, its name was called Galid, also Mitzvah. We were talking about this last Monday night, the men's Bible study, and we were saying, you know, when Christian people go over to Israel and we talk about the Bible, so often we've got no clue what the Bible's actually saying. I wonder what these Jewish people over there, knowing the Old Testament so well, they must look at us and think, you complete idiots. And yet, at the same time, they envy us so badly, because these guys, the entire existence, the Jewish people, the entire existence is brought up on the Old Testament and knowing the Scriptures. And now they look at us, the Christians, and they're looking at us shaking their heads, you complete idiots. And yet God is reaching out to these complete idiots, you and me. It's provoking them to jealousy, and one day they're going to come around based upon that. So they set up this agreement, and what they're saying here is, and why I bring that story up, is because this word mitzvah is, in today's custom, we will take a pendant and we'll get it inscribed, and it'll say, may the Lord watch over you and watch over me. And it means while we are apart, may the Lord watch over us. That's not what the Scripture is saying. Normally it's like a love thing, okay? You give it to your girlfriend or your wife or whatever, and it's, oh man, my sweetness, here when we're apart, may the Lord watch over you and me. That's not what's being said here. What's being said here is that God's going to be a witness, and if you cross this line, God's going to take you out. That's what's being said. And this is why I bring up a story about the Jewish people looking at us thinking, we're nuts. All these Christian people walking around in Israel with these little mitzvah things on, and they're holding hands. The Jews must be looking at this thinking, man, they must really hate each other. So, then they go on, may the Lord watch between you and me when we are absent from one another. If you afflict my daughters, or if take other wives beside my daughter, although no man is with us, see, God is a witness between you and me. Then Laban said to Jacob, here is the heap, and here is the pillar which I have placed between you and me. This heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness, that I will not pass beyond this heap to you, and you will not pass beyond this heap and this pillar to me for harm. The contest has gone on and on and on between these two con men, and they're both conceding that, you know what, enough's enough. We are going to end up killing each other. Let's just agree to stay away from each other. Kind of like that with Christianity as well. You know, when you're reaching out to people, and they just, no. At some point, you got to say, okay, and leave it alone, and walk away.
Where it says for harm, does that mean yeah, you go visit someone that already seen you, but if you come back with bad intention, you'll die, or is it just go over at all?
They qualify for harm, but it's a case of, Jacob never ever goes near that area again. So I'm assuming that it's like, I don't want to see you ugly face around here anymore.
And then it would mean if they did that, then they would be harmed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that's when God would strike them down. So verse 53, the God of Abram, the God of Nahor, and the God of their father judged between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain and called his brethren to eat bread. And they ate bread, and they stayed all night on the mountain. And early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his sons and his daughters. And, notice that he doesn't kiss Jacob. And he blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned to his place. Remember when Abraham died? At the end of it, he was gathered to his people. Laban, he doesn't choose to follow God. And where's he going? He's going to his place. It's a choice. He didn't get sent there, but that's where he's going. Bit of a scary wake-up call. You know, you're presented with so many opportunities to accept the Lord. And even for many of us, there's proof, there's evidence. And I look back at my life, and nobody ever came and said, hey, Rory, I want to tell you about Jesus. And probably because at that time I was just totally unapproachable. So it was not their fault, it was my fault. But so I didn't need for somebody to come to me and say, hey, let me tell you about Jesus. I was a reasonably intelligent human being, and I look around, and you cannot look around this world or look at yourself and just think, well, this just all happened. There's got to be something. You can take it back to like the Big Bang Theory, and there's a whole bunch of nothing, and then the nothingness bumped into the nothing, and then there was it. Okay? So who created the nothingness that caused them to bump? If you go back to the scientific principle, the principle of first cause, there's always got to be something that sets something in motion. So what was the something? There's not just, oh, it's just random. No, there's no randomness. You want random? Go and get one of those kiddies' alphabet sets, throw them in the trunk of your car and go running up my driveway. And they rattle around a bit. Open the thing and you'll find a Shakespearean poem. That's how far-fetched evolution is. That's random. You find me randomness. There is no randomness.
Much faith to believe in that as it does to believe in nothing.
I'd say it takes more. I really would. I'd say it takes a lot more. There's nothing on the face of this planet that it goes from disorder to order. There's nothing that goes from chaos to order. And yet, that is what the principle behind evolution and any other of the other theories require in order to disprove God. There's chaos, and all of a sudden that chaos was ordered. How? And yet, I still walked around for so many years with my eyes shut, refusing to accept God, that there was a God. And the reason that happened, especially for me, is the day that you accept, yes, there is a God, therefore He created me, now I'm subservient to Him. I owe Him something. He's my creator. Up until that time, I was my God. I had my own set of rules. I had my own set of 10 commandments. I don't step on your toes, you don't step on mine. You step on my toes, there's consequence. I had my own set of 10 commandments worked out. But I was my God. The day that I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord, now all of a sudden I'm out of that position. I'm not God anymore. Now I've got to start to say, whoa, there's something bigger than me. And He calls the shots. He's God, I'm not. And you start getting into this, His Word. Now I don't have a choice. Because either He is Lord of all, or He's not Lord at all. One of the two. You can't have both. And in so doing, now I have to obey this. Or I've got to turn around and say, well, I know He exists, but I choose not to follow. That was Laban's choice. And he went back to his place. Father God, we just